It says here, a short Ezra Nehemiah recounts historical events from the Persian period, while the second Ezra is a later work reflecting on those events from the perspective of post-Second Temple Judaism, using apocalyptic visions attributed to Ezra. The second Ezra comes centuries after the historical events described in Ezra and Nehemiah, and serves as a very different literary and theological purpose. The authorship of Second Ezra is traditionally attributed to Ezra, the Jewish scribe and priest from the 5th century BC. However, modern scholarship generally holds that Second Ezra was written much later, likely in the 1st century AD, in the Jewish community after the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD. The text is apocalyptic, which they go off there. The text is apocalyptic and visionary, markedly different in style and content from the historical Ezra and Nehemiah books. It features Ezra as a character who receives divine revelations and visions addressing themes of divine justice, suffering, and the end times. Thus, although Ezra is presented as the author in the text and tradition, the book likely was composed by an anonymous author long after Ezra's lifetime, using Ezra's persona as a respected figure to convey its theological messages, which yeah, they go off there. So now let's go to Nehemiah. It's Nehemiah 2, verse 10. When Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite official heard about this, they were very much disturbed that someone had come to promote the welfare of the Israelites. Nehemiah 2. But when Sanballat the Horonite, Tobiah the Ammonite official, and Geshem the Arab heard about it, they mocked and ridiculed us. What is this you are doing? They asked, are you rebelling against the king? Verse 20, I answered them by saying, the God of heaven will give us success. We, his servants, will start rebuilding, but as for you, you have no share in Jerusalem or any claim or historic right to it. Nehemiah 4, verse when Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall, he became angry and was greatly incensed. He ridiculed the Jews in the presence of his associates in the army of Samaria. He said, what are those feeble Jews doing? Will they restore their wall? Will they offer sacrifices? Will they finish in a day? Can they bring the stones back to life from those heaps of rubble, burned as they are? 3. Tobiah the Ammonite, who was at his side, said, what they are building, even a fox climbing up on it would break down their wall of stones. 7. But when Sanballat, Tobiah, the Arabs, the Ammonites, and the people of Ashdod heard that the repairs of Jerusalem's walls had gone ahead, and that the gates were being enclosed, they were very angry. 8. So they are plots together to come and fight against Jerusalem and stir up trouble in Nehemiah chapter 6. Subheading says, reads further opposition to the rebuilding. Verse 1. When word came to Sanballat, Tobiah, Geshem the Arab, and the rest of our enemies that I had rebuilt the wall and not a gap was left in it, though up to that time I had not set the doors and the gates. To Sanballat and Geshem sent me this message, come, let us meet together in one of the villages on the plain of but but they were scheming to harm me. 3. So I sent messengers to them with this reply: I am carrying out on a great project and cannot go down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and go down to you? 4. 4 times they sent me the same message, and each time I gave them the same answer. 5. Then the 5th time Sanballat sent his aide to me with the same message, and in his hands was an unsealed letter. 6. In which was written, It is reported among the nations, and Geshem says, It is true that you and the Jews are plotting the revolt, and therefore you are building the wall. Moreover, according to these reports, you are about to become their king. 7. And have even appointed prophets to make this proclamation about you in Jerusalem. There is a king in Judah. Now this report will get back to the king. So come, let us meet together. I sent him this reply: Nothing like what you are saying is happening. You are just making it up out of your head. 9. They were all trying to frighten us, thinking their hands will get too weak for the work and it will not be completed. But I prayed, now strengthen my hands. 10. One day I went to the house of Shemaiah, son of Delaiah, the son of Mehetabel, who was shut in at his home. He said, Let us meet in the house of God inside the temple, and let us close the temple doors, because men are coming to kill you. By night they are coming to kill you. 11. But I said, Should a man like me run away, or should someone like me go into the temple to save his life? I will not go. 12. I realized that God had not sent him, but that he had prophesied against me, because Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. 13. He had been hired to intimidate me so that I would commit a sin by doing this, and then they would give me a bad name to discredit me. 14. Remember Tobiah and Sanballat, my God, because of what they had done. Remember also the prophet Noadiah, and how she and the rest of the prophets had been trying to intimidate me. 15. So the wall was completed on the 25th of Elul in 52 days. Opposition of the completed wall. 16. When all our enemies heard about this, all the surrounding nations were afraid and lost their self-confidence, because they realized that this work had been done with the help of our power. Also in those days, the nobles of Judah were sending many letters to Tobiah, and replies from Tobiah kept coming to them. For many in Judah were under oath to him, since he was son-in-law to Shechaniah, son of Arah, and his son Jehohanan had married the daughter of Meshullam, son of Berechiah. Moreover, they kept reporting to me his good deeds, and then telling him what I said, and Tobiah sent letters to intimidate me. So that was some of the opposition and enemies to the brothers there rebuilding the temple, the walls. So now I gotta go back to this. Chronology of the Second Temple. Here's a map. I want to go to this map here. The pink is 600 BC. The red is, let's get this here. The 586, the destruction of the first temple. 537, that was the proclamation of Cyrus. 516, the second temple was completed. And 331, Alexander overthrows Persia. 160, 198, Antiochus the third takes Jerusalem. 160, Antiochus the fourth sacks Jerusalem. 167, Antiochus the fourth sets up an altar to Zeus in the second temple. Around the same time, the Maccabean revolt begins. 164 is the rededication of the Second Temple by the Maccabees, which is Hanukkah. Kwanak. At 129 is effective Hasmonean independence begins. 63 Roman conquest. 63 BC Pompey enters the Holy of Holies. 20 BC Herod begins rebuilding. And in 70 CE the Second Temple is destroyed. Alexander's conquest and Hellenism. While overthrowing the Persian Empire, Alexander took Judea in 332 BCE. Josephus tells an apocryphal story that Alexander came to Jerusalem temple and offered a sacrifice, and while there was shown a scroll of Daniel, which predicted his overthrow of Persia. While Daniel very explicitly predicts the reign of Alexander and its successor, it does so because it was written almost 2 centuries after they lived. Okay, that goes off there. Yeah, he goes off. This got this fucking frog looking Edomite motherfucker here. He goes off by saying that. Just like with the Ezra, just like what they'll say with how when the book of Ezra was written, they'll say it wasn't. They say Ezra didn't write it. Basically, they say he wouldn't write it. Hellenism, Ptolemies and Seleucids. Alexander the Macedon conquered Persia, Judea, and Samaria became provinces of the Hellenistic successor kingdoms, initially falling under the authority of the Ptolemies of Egypt. The provinces were incorporated into the Seleucid kingdom of Syria by 198 BCE. Elites in both provinces were heavily influenced by Hellenism. This photo of Ptolemy I Soter ruled Egypt from 305 to 282 BCE. The Seleucid kingdom, the Greeks ruled the east till Rome grew stronger. They annexed the territory. Here's another map. Rump Seleucia in 124 BCE after massive losses to Rome and the Parthians. Context of the Maccabean revolt. Originally the most powerful Hellenistic successor, the Seleucids lost Anatolia to Rome and her allies in 188 BCE and lost Persia and Mesopotamia to the Parthians by 129 BCE, leaving only a rump state in Syria, which Rome ultimately annexed in 63 BCE. The decline of the Seleucid power provided the context for the revolt and relatively short-lived Hasmonean kingdom of Judea. Desecration of the Jerusalem temple. There's a photo of Seleucid IV. The Seleucid king Antiochus IV Epiphanes decided to suppress the Jewish religion in 168 BCE. Marching on Jerusalem, he set up an idol to or altar to Zeus in the temple called the Abomination of Desolation in Daniel 11:31. The action sparked a revolt led by Judas Maccabees in 167, which successfully took Jerusalem in 164 and rededicated the temple. Yeah, that's that frog looking to eat him once again, going off in the scriptures. You can read about Antiochus IV in Daniel 11, the consecration of the temple in 164, accompanied by a miracle of overcoming oil scarcity is the origin of Hanukkah festival, a semi-autonomous area under John Hyrcanus in 134 BCE, and expansions during his reign. This expansion amid the collapse, the Hasmoneans achieved autonomy from the Seleucids, ruling as ethnarchs and high priests of Jerusalem. As the Samaritans did not join in the revolt, the Judeans saw them as enemy supporters of the Seleucids, and as Seleucid power continued to decline, the Hasmoneans successfully expanded their territory to include Samaria and Idumea. From ethnarchy to kingdom. Expansion under Alexander Jannaeus to 76 BCE. Having conquered Samaria, John Hyrcanus destroyed the temple on Mount Gerizim in 111 to 110 BCE. John Hyrcanus, son Aristobulus I, successfully asserted Hasmonean independence, assuring the titles Basileus, king, and high priest. Later, Hasmoneans successfully began Judaizing Idumeans and Galileans, but the Samaritans now resisted as schismatic Israelites. Gaius Pompeius Magnus. Okay, hold on. 106 to 48 BCE. From kingdom to client state. While Seleucid weakness was the context that allowed Hasmonean independence, it also attracted a new major power to the region. Pompey the Greek annexed the Seleucid kingdom to Rome, and in 63 BCE laid siege to Jerusalem. Conquering the city, he tore the temple and entered the Holy of Holies, desecrating it perhaps inadvertently. Rome in charge. Herod's kingdom divided into tetrarchies, 30 CE. While Rome initially allowed Hasmonean kings to continue to rule as Judea as clients, the Senate recognized Herod, son of a loyal Idumean noble, as king, which allowed his rebuilding program. After Herod's death, Rome divided his realm into tetrarchies ruled by different Herodian sons, except for a brief period, 41 to 44 BC, or whatever that is, under King Herod Agrippa I. It says here, Herod the Greek had rebuilt the city of Samaria as a pagan city named Sebesti, Greek for Augustus, to honor his patron, rebuilding its temple to worship the imperial cult. The Emperor Caligula, there's a photo of it, Caligula, reigned 37 to 41 CE. He demanded that a statue of himself dressed as Jupiter be similarly installed in the Jerusalem temple, which likely would have sparked the war. He ended up dying, so it didn't happen. But this is in 70 CE, Roman forces destroyed Jerusalem. The first Jewish-Roman war. The crisis was averted with the assassination of Caligula in 41 CE. However, Judean discontent with Roman rule persisted, and a full-scale rebellion broke out in 66 CE. While the rebels initially found surprising success against local garrisons and legions based in the East, the Empire mustered overwhelming military force, destroying Jerusalem in 70 CE. Spoils of the East and the Ark of Titus in Rome. Yeah, that's what's his archaeological proof. End of the Second Temple period. The destruction of the temple ended the Second Temple period, changing the course of history for both Judaism and Christianity. After a final Jewish revolt under the leadership of Bar Kokhba, thought by many to be a Messiah, was similarly suppressed by the Romans in 136 CE. The rabbis slowly took the lead and began to refocus Judaism. Refounded by the Emperor Hadrian after his visit to Judea in 129 to 130 CE, the Emperor Hadrian, another great builder, decided to found a new pagan city on the ruins of Jerusalem named Aelia Capitolina, likely with a temple to Jupiter on the temple platform. Here's a full map of that. That signified the end of the temple period. Jews were forbidden to entrance into the city until the Muslim conquest in 636 AD. Julian, the last pagan emperor. This is Emperor Julian, ruled from 361 to 63, 363 AD. In keeping with his low goal of ending imperial patronage for Christianity and supporting alternatives, trying to create a church-like institution to promote the worship of Rome's old gods, the Emperor Julian entertained the idea of building a third Jerusalem temple. His short reign prevented these and all of his plans, which that just showed it wasn't of the will of the Lord. He was planning on building the third temple. And then this is the Muslim. After that, you got now, which is what's present there today on the temple platform, old ancient temple platform, Jerusalem temple platform, is the Al-Quds. Muslim conquest. This meant that an amazing piece of sacred real estate was vacant at the time of the Muslim conquest, which was filled beginning in circa 691 CE by the oldest surviving religious structure built by a Muslim ruler, Caliph Abd al-Malik. And that's what's there today. So that concludes the end of this lesson, the historical lesson of the temple. So I'll close out with some last scriptures here. This is give you an idea of how rich the temple was. 2 Chronicles 4, starting at 19. Solomon also made these items for God's temple: the gold altar, the tables on which the bread of the presence was kept, 20 of the pure gold lampstands, and their lamps which burn as specified at the entrance of the inner sanctuary, 21. The pure gold flower-shaped ornaments, lamps, and tongs, 22. The pure gold trimming, spheres, basins, pans, and censers, and the gold door sockets for the inner sanctuary, the most holy place, and for the doors of the main hall of the temple. 2 Chronicles 3, I start at verse 3. So Solomon laid the foundation for God's temple. The length determined according to the old standard of measure was 90 feet, and in width 30 feet. The porch in front of the main hall was 30 feet long, corresponding with the length of the temple, and its height was 30 feet. He plated the inside with pure gold. He paneled the main hall with boards made from evergreen trees and plated it with fine gold, decorated with palm trees and chains. 6. He decorated the temple with precious stones. The gold he used came from Parabim. 7. He overlaid the temple's rafters, thresholds, walls, and doors with gold. He carved decorative cherubim on the walls. 8. He made the most holy place. Its length was 30 feet, corresponding to the width of the temple, and its width 30 feet. He plated 600 talents of fine gold. The gold nails weighed 50 shekels. He also plated the upper areas with gold. Verse 10. In the most holy place, he made 2 images of cherubim and plated them with gold. So look at how much gold that was. As you can see there, that was a lot of gold that we would have had, and you would have seen in and outside the temple. And this is Ezekiel 37 and 22. And of course, we lost that. We don't have that, all that, those reserves of gold in there. Because as we saw right earlier, those Edomites, the so-called white people today, that's what they would call themselves today. They went in there and stole all the gold and the ornaments that we had in there. Hence why we don't have anything now. But here in Ezekiel, we read about this. It's describing this third temple, which is metaphorical. So we're going to get, so this hasn't happened yet. We already know the Lord has promised us that in the book of Haggai, I believe, that thou shalt make, or in Isaiah as well as in Isaiah, the Lord said, he shall make our latter end to be greater than the first. He tells Haggai in the book of Haggai, well, how does this first temple look in magnificence to this first temple? He tells them it's really nothing in comparison. But and later on in the chapter, I think it's the next chapter, the Lord mentions how this third temple, though, shall be greater, though, than the first. And then Isaiah, that's going into our condition. Obviously, there's not going to be a third temple, but it's going into how our condition is going to be. We're not going to need a temple in the kingdom, the New Jerusalem, but it is going to be here. And it's going to be basically the city of Jerusalem that's Ezekiel is describing here, if I'm not mistaken. And that's going to be basically the new temple. It's going to be the city of Jerusalem, which is going to be paved with gold, streets of gold. So there's Ezekiel 37 and 22. I will unite them into one nation in the land of the mountains of Israel. They will have one king to rule over them, and they will no longer be divided into 2 nations or split into 2 kingdoms. Jumping to 26, I will make a covenant with them that guarantees their security forever. I will establish them and increase their population, and will see to it that my temple stands forever in their land. Yeah, this temple is us. It's going to be in us, but it's going to be the city of Jerusalem as well, because that's where we're going to go to keep the Passover, the holy days, high holy days. And no heathens are going to be allowed in there. Every Israelite's going to be able to be inside, go inside the temple. It's just simply the city of Jerusalem. 27, I will live there with them. I will be their God, their power, and they will be my people. It's basically the new covenant. When I place my temple there to be among them forever. Yeah, because it makes sense when you go into the temple. You got the menorah. When you go into the menorah, it represents the tree of life. That's why you got 7 candlesticks where it represented 7 branches. When you look at the menorah, it looks like a tree. Actually, looks like a tree. And I speculate that the Lord did that because he knew that represents the tree of life, his laws, and the new covenant. It's no coincidence. That's why it has 7. 7 means complete. I mentioned it in the first part of this video, or second or third part of it. Adam got kicked out of this tree of life, the Garden of Eden. And then the Levites, such as the Israelites in Jerusalem, we got kicked out of the temple, where the temple used to be the second temple. It was the final temple. The final temple got kicked out of there, which, just like Adam had to take care of the Garden of Eden, the Levites had to take care of the temple. and both of them couldn't take care of, weren't able to take care of it fully, perfectly. So it just simply, the temple simply just represents the perfection, the covenant, the new covenant, us keeping it all together fully again. But anyway, this is Ezekiel 37 going down to 27. I will live with them. I will live with them. It says there, I will be their God, and they will be my people. 28. When I place my temple there to be among them forever, then the nations will know that I, the Lord, have chosen Israel to be my own people. God. And I'll close out with this, where the temple split, basically. First Kings 13. I'll start with this one first. First Kings 13, verse 1. By the word of the Lord, a man of God that came from Judah to Bethel as Jeroboam was standing by the altar to make an offering. 2. By the word of the Lord, he cried out against the altar. Altar, this is what the Lord says. A son named Josiah will be born to the house of David. On you he will sacrifice the priests of the high places who make offerings here, and human bones will be burned on you. 3. That same day the man of God gave a sign. This is the sign the Lord has declared: the altar will be split apart, and the ashes on it will be poured out. And basically, that symbolized going to the New Testament, when you get the temple that's split. They even said it here in these commentaries here. Just as the split altar at Bethel symbolized the rejection of Jeroboam's false worship, the tearing of the temple bell at Yahushua's death signified the end of the sacrificial system in the Old Covenant. So I'm going to get that here. Matthew 27:51, it says, at the moment the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, the earth shook, the rock split. Yes, this was after Yahushua got his spirit taken up. 52, when the tombs broke open, the bodies of many holy people who had died were raised to life. They came out of the tombs after Yahushua's resurrection and went to the holy city and appeared to many people. Yeah, and basically, once again, it symbolized once again that the new covenant, basically. Yahushua, what represented the new temple, where you got to go and sacrifice and make atonement, not some physical temple. At the moment, the curtain of the temple, which because the Ark of the Covenant was in there as well. Either way, so that already was a sign of that the old covenant was passed in a way. It was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook, so even the earth shook and the rocks split. And so yeah, that represents the new covenant, what the new temple is going to be. Shalom. Blah, blah, blah.